Hello and welcome to WTF MCP. This is a podcast, video podcast, whatever you want to call it, that we're doing where smarter people than me come and explain what the MCP is to me, the layman. And my name is Jay Shelanskey, and this week joining me is Tim France from the Professional Casual Network.
Howdy, man. How are you?
Fantastic. If you guys don't know, Tim does streams, podcasts, live streams of events. He's the MCP master of ceremonies, maybe.
Yeah, I'm the F of the WTF. It's what? Tim France, MCP? There we go.
Yeah, I love it. But yeah, so do not despair. I'm gonna say bad words, but they're being bleeped out, so you can have your kids watch this for those of you at home. But today's episode is going to really get us started. These are all going to be beginners kind of guides to what the MCP actually is.
Mhm.
And today's episode is what the is MCP, Tim France?
That's a great question, right? So MCP is a skirmish game of Marvel characters where you can combine both heroes and villains and just honestly punch the ever-living life out of one another, throw each other, throw things, have a good time.
Love it. Love it. So what drew you into it?
So, honestly, and I think a lot of people that are currently into MCP maybe came from either rank and file games or larger scale games like AOS or 40K, Legion, really kind of anything that, you're going to be there for 3 hours. I wanted something I could go to the game store. I could play a couple games in a night for leagues or what have you, and still have a good time and feel like my decisions mattered and it wasn't too boiled down, right?
Yeah.
And MCP could just kind of came out at a perfect time. I just finished playing a whole bunch of 8th edition 40K. We heard about MCP and I was like, yo, okay, so Marvel license sounds dope.
Yeah.
And it's skirmish based. I can play who I want, when I want. And listen, I can have Cap and Red Skull on the same team and it works.
Yeah.
And not just like for fluff, but like it actually just like works.
Yes. Yeah.
And I can throw things. Like how many games can you explode terrain and throw it at somebody? Like,
that is absolutely right. And I think that's probably my second favorite thing about the game. For me, and the thing I always tell people is I never feel out of the game. They have this great mechanic where you have a healthy side and kind of a wounded side, and you have health points on each side. And sometimes round one, your healthy side could get one shot by something. But you become stronger on the other side when you're like backed into the corner. For the most part, most characters become stronger when they're backed into the corner.
You never feel like you're out of the game round one. Like you never feel like you just get like something happens and you lost on deployment. That just doesn't happen in MCP, which is a very, very, very nice change of pace.
Yeah, I think also, why don't you kind of explain power to the folks and what that is? Because I think that's like one of the more important pieces of MCP.
Yeah, so it's kind of the biggest resource in the game, right? So power fuels your attacks, it fuels your superpowers, it fuels movement, interacting with terrain or with objectives. Power is it's monies. You know what I mean? Everything costs money, and power really kind of fits that. So when you attack somebody, if you do enough damage, you get some power. If you get hit, you get power. There's a bunch of different ways to get power kind of throughout the game, but it kind of rewards both being aggressive. It rewards being the target of aggression, and it rewards playing defensively as well. So power you gain from all sorts of different things, but that is kind of your main focus and resource to do anything that you would ever want to do.
So when you said that I could have Captain America and Red Skull on the same team, how is that possible, Tim?
So that's a great question. So one of the main focuses in the game is what's called affiliation. So similar to other game types where you have, you're running an army and everyone's this army and everyone has to fit and they have to have the same, whatever heirloom or banner or whatever. It's very different in MCP. 50% or more. Actually, I think it's actually said more than 50% of your roster, which is what you're actually bringing into the game, has to be under the same affiliation. So if you're running X-Men, you got to have Cyclops, you got to have Storm, maybe some Wolverine. But if you have 2 more characters, if you're running 5 characters, listen, those 2 other characters can be anything because you've already made up more than 50% of your roster with X-Men. Throw in Apocalypse, throw in Dormammu, throw in Captain America, Falcon, Winter Soldier, Hulk. Listen, they're X-Men now, at least for the time being.
Yeah. So you're saying this word affiliation, it sounds like teams. How do I know who's on what teams besides just knowing lore of, X-Men or Avengers?
So lore does help you a ton here. You can find some characters and affiliations because they were in that team in issue 473 in 1984. But the AMG website has a very nice document that shows everybody that's in every affiliation. If someone is in X-Men, it is shown in that list. Also, a lot of character boxes come with cards showing what affiliation those characters belong in and what other characters belong in it.
So does MCP use like rulers, like actual like rulers like I've seen in Warhammer, or do they have their own templates?
Great question. So while you can use a tape measure if you really want to, the game and the core box, and these are also sold separately as well, does have 2 different types of tools. They have movement tools and range tools. They are very different things. The movement tools, obviously, you can use, you set it down on one end of your model. Depending on their speed, whether it's short, medium, or long, there's a tool for each of those speeds. And as long as they start touching it and end touching it, it's a legal movement. They also have a knuckle in the middle, so you can go around corners or buildings or other characters, what have you. And then range are kind of straight templates that are range 2, 3, 4, and 5 that shows range for being able to pick up something and throw it. It shows range for, shooting guns or punching dudes. Those are kind of the main functions of those tools.
Wow, Tim, that's really exciting.
It is. More tools, the better, right?
Yeah. The other thing, and I'm playing a little coy here, asking Tim questions. I play the game. I know some things about the game. I did go 3-1 at a tournament recently.
Listen, you've beaten multiple people for the Professional Casual Network at MCP.
That's right.
And that's
Tell
like
them
their
what
job.
I win if I beat everybody.
You get to become John PCN, which is a ceremonious position, but yeah, it means you make decisions.
Yeah, I was told I'd be in charge of the network.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you're here. So one of the other great things I think about MCP is that there's only one die type.
Yes. Attack dice, defense dice, rolling for objectives. Everything's just the one 8-sided die.
Rolling for priority. Like you just, so, and I think that's something in other games that could get confusing is, I have different color die, different size die, depending on what, but this game is very clear about how much dice you'll be rolling, when you'll be rolling them, and, how many you'll need of that. And yeah, I think it's a very elegant way that they designed that with the whole system.
It's one of the things that we'll see a lot in MCP, broad base, high ceiling, right? Like it is very obtainable, but there's a lot to learn and a lot of skill difference that you can have in there.
Yeah, so that's an interesting point. So for maybe somebody just getting into it, that maybe they play other war games and they're a little bit competitive. There is actually a competitive scene for this game. It's a very casual game, and that's what Atomic Mass Games wants it to be. But there's also a very competitive scene. And Tim, you attend a lot of these, so I don't know. Do you have any insights as to how the competitive scene is? How are the people?
Yeah, honestly, so this is something that we touch on a lot, and we hear a lot of other podcasts and other groups talk about, is that the community behind MCP is just awesome. Like you go to an event and you're not going to have like a bad play experience based on the community. And I think that's very rare in a miniatures war game. And granted, usually it seems like it's a little bit better in skirmish games. People are a little bit more ready to be like, it's just this game. It's going to be 45 minutes and I'm going to move on to the next one. Yeah. But no, there's a very good competitive scene. There's a very good casual scene too. Yeah. AMG has done a phenomenal job at releasing organized play kits that are both very fun and interesting for both competitive and casual players. You go to a con like Adepticon or LVO, and you will constantly see people running. I think one of the more popular organized play kits is called Separation Anxiety. Uh, Bunch of canisters all around. Everyone's getting symbiotes and random powers. People love it. It's 4 players. It's a great introduction to the game. It's a great competitive thing. Like you can do a lot with some of these organized play kits, and that's one of the things that like kind of really makes the community stand out. Is like you can have people that are like running and gunning to be first at a qualifier or a big tournament like LVO, but they're like, oh, but I do want to play some Separation Anxiety because
Yeah.
what if Hulk had a symbiote on him and he can move long and fly and also shoot lasers? Like it's just one of those dope things about this game.
Yeah, I think one of the other things that I want to talk about here too, which is really great, that I think some people may find hesitation in when coming from other war games, is terrain. And I think one of the great things that Atomic Mass Games does with Marvel Crisis Protocol is they have designated sizes for terrain
Mhm.
and what they can do. And I'll let you speak on this, but after playing a bunch of games and playing with different terrain, and I personally think their terrain is perfect and the best terrain you could get for the game.
I completely agree. And especially they're so generous with providing pretty much a full table of terrain in the
Yeah.
core box. So if you really want to get into it and you want to have a table, you want to have a full roster, listen, a core box literally gives you all that.
Mhm.
Like it comes with the movement tools, it comes with the dice, it comes with 10 characters, which is enough for a full roster that can be run multiple ways, comes with a full table of terrain. Like it's kind of a really stellar value. Um, but yeah, the terrain and as and the dice are characters in this game.
Yeah.
How you set up the board, what you're doing, whether you're doing a thematic board, whether you're using kind of the official AMG stuff, a lot of different ways to go. And the size of terrain, everything has a size, both
Yep.
characters and terrain. So when you're picking up something and throwing it, you can do so based on its size. If you're throwing a taco truck, that's going to do more damage than throwing a garbage can.
Yep.
But garbage cans will probably be more plentiful than taco trucks.
Right. Yes. AMG has a great in the rules. They break down how much training. They actually also do a lot of blog posts, and they
Mhm.
have one that breaks it down even more and tells you how much you need. The other thing to remember is if you're thinking about getting into this game, the game basically functions on a 2D plane. So
Mhm.
when you're looking at terrain, right, all that matters is the two-dimensional, like looking at it, and whether you can see draw a line to the other character through it. So having a little bit more complex terrain is actually okay in this,
Mhm.
because you're just going, hey, it's a size 4 or 5, whatever it is, and that's what it is, and I'm looking down flat at it, and so everything's great.
Well, it's one of those things too. Like with the Marvel IP, there's so much to pull from. Like
Yeah.
some of the tables we've seen. Adepticon last year had a bunch of 3D printed like arcade, like the X-Men villain. It was like a giant pinball board with Arcade's face all
Yeah.
over the
Yeah.
place, and you can throw the bumpers and stuff around. Like you can have Savage World stuff, Danger Room, like Wakanda, like
Yep.
the construction set, like the Kingpin construction
Oh
set. I
yeah.
think is one of my favorites. Like
So I would say, for those of you, if you wanted to build a simple, quick, like full table with a lot of extra options, if you get the starter set and then you get the construction set,
mhm.
I've just finished painting all mine and building mine, and I have a full construction set that I just put on like a muddy mat,
Yeah,
basically, to make it, and it's actually a wonderful uh
yeah.
board for MCP. So
That's the really cool thing is that like pretty much any, well, not any, but like the majority of mats out there, you can make an MCP board out of.
yeah,
If it's space, if it's sci-fi, if it's mundane, fantasy, grass, sand, Mars, whatever, like
it's all
you
Gucci.
can figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's great. Well, I think that's enough for our primer for today. So that's what the MCP is. Join us every week when we ask a new question of one of our guests. And, Mr. Tim's going to be on for a while, and we're very excited about this. Thanks for joining us, Tim.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, we'll see you next week, everybody.